Well, welcome to Spiritual Center, Pflugerville. And we're here post-Thanksgiving. And everybody do well Thanksgiving?
Yes.
It's very, very interesting. I don't know about you, but I've noticed a spirit of, I want to use the word disruption, but it's really not that. It's just everybody's running around trying to get ready for Christmas all of a sudden. And things are happening. There's kind of like a stirred up kind of thing. And a lot of people are still out traveling. We have people in Alabama, a couple of other places.
Sherry's on.
Is she?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Sherry. So we are in the middle of the idea that we are God. I was listening to the song, and thank you for the opening song, Bruce and RJ. And I know Larry had a lot to do with that. But welcome to the place where we see you as God. I'm going to say it again. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the group. Welcome to the consciousness that sees you as God. Okay, and what I wrote this week was, we are thankful for your presence. Okay? And here's the idea behind that. And the idea behind it is, we are created in the image and after likeness of God. Genesis 1:27. Okay? So, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking I'm going to read it. And I looked this up in 3 or 4 Bibles, and it's all pretty much the same. And Genesis 1:27, which is in the beginning, okay? And I better put this on. So I have some healing to do with my eyes. It's interesting. What is vision? Did you hear the song earlier? Vision and sight are not the same. So there's a conversation there that we're also going to be talking about. But anyway, Genesis 1:27. So God had created man, or human, in his own image. In the image of God, he created us, male and female. He created them. Now, is there any question about that? And this is actually an idea that is duplicated in other religions. Because you get to the point where you start looking at what is the universal truth, what it keeps popping up here and there all over the universe in religious beliefs, and in spiritual beliefs. So it says very clearly, so God created, and I'm going to make it human in his own image, period. Now, we have to go to John 4:24, when Jesus said that God is spirit, we must worship him in spirit and in truth. So what is the image of God? Spirit, okay? It is not the human form that we see, it's the spiritual self that we are. So that was the original creation. And then later, now I'm going to Genesis 2. Now, nobody knows how long these years were. Some of they say it's around 5, 6, 7,000 years. But really, it's lost in the eons of time. So later, it says in chapter 2, and the Lord God formed Adam out of the soil of the earth. Now, science tells me that I am full of molecules and atoms, and if you get the table of elements, and we are made up of different items in the table of elements. And I understand there's iron, all kinds of things involved in our makeup, and everything is put together. So God created this image. The image was created first, and then a body was created for the spirit to live in. And that's an important point, because that's really where we are now in that conversation. Now, I've been doing some reading in there are some esoteric ideas. And back in ancient times, there was conversations about the human being, us. We were in spiritual form, and we learned at that time how to reach human form. So we could go back and forth. Everybody get that? I want you to understand this. So we as spirit are spirit, and the body is a separate entity created for us to live in and operate in the world we're in. However, at some point in time, we have the ability to live spiritually, completely spiritually, and if it was suited us, we had the opportunity to create form. So at some point in time, God created form for us to live in, which is what we're dealing with. And anybody agree it's a pretty well created form? Because it's self-functioning, it does its own thing, it eats fuel, and it does all kinds of different things. And people don't want to look at that. But it's a human body, it's a body that we live in as a spiritual self. Okay? So it's an important item to understand. And I'm not saying that you should understand it, I'm just saying here's an idea. And the idea is, how come we are in a body, and how come that body is wearing out? How come the body loses? How come the body reaches a point of termination? Because it's made of human form. So I'm going to go back to Genesis. I don't know why I closed it, but I did. And I'm going to go back. It says, and the Lord God formed Adam out of the soil of the earth and breathed into his nostrils his breath of life, and man became a living being in the physical world. And the physical world, by definition, has its beginnings and its ends. Everything in the physical world has a beginning, as far as we know. In other words, that chair was made about 10 years ago, but it's going to wear out some point, and it's going to be on a trash heap somewhere. Or it's going to be melted down and recycled back into something made of metal. So where does our body go? The Bible tells me dust to dust. So we're made out of the soil, which is said here, and what happens to it when it's gone? Well, I understand we decompose, which means what? Return back into the original material form in the material world, and our spirit continues in another form. Now, I'm not saying that that's absolute, I'm saying that's an idea. Okay? So, there is an idea that by definition, we're here to learn a lesson in a body that has been created for us at this point in time. And a lot of it depends on how we take care of it, but also, I think you call it live with faith. Okay? So it's a very, very interesting idea. Now, I'm going to go back. We are thankful for your presence. We just read where in the ancient scriptures it is said that you are created in the image of God. So you are a spiritual image created as a child of God, and you have all the characteristics that God has. Because the other Bible, the New Testament says they were heirs with Christ, with Jesus. And Jesus was an individual that learned how to overcome the body and transcend into the spiritual world. So what is our job? What is a spiritual walk? Well, spiritual walk in all the major religions are returning to the Father. And they have fancy names for it. They call it nirvana, or dharma, or all these names, or heaven, that's another term. And they are all descriptions of what's possible for us and who we really are. So it goes on and says, you are, and this is me thinking, I've been looking at this. You are a holy presence, radiating the energy of divinity from who you are. What animates you? How come when you walk through that door, you walk through the door? How come you come in and sit down? And you make a choice to sit down and be with us. What created that choice? What keeps you moving? How come you put one foot in front of another? How come you cared to communicate? Some of you gave hugs, some of you shook hands, some of you said glad to see you, so there was a conversation that took place. Everything is divinity in our conversation, in our work. What animates you? Why do you live? What is up with you? And your presence is actually holy, and that is a conversation in each of the ancient religions in the world. So if that's true, It's an honor for you to be sitting here. It's an honor for you to be on that TV. It's an honor for us to be together in each presence. Because if you really are a child of God, what are we creating here and now? So it's an honor. And we just went through Thanksgiving, and everybody's going around being thankful. But the truth is, it's thankful just because you are you. And there's nobody else like you. Stop and think about this. They have fingerprint bases, as far as I know, everybody's. But there's nobody that has exactly the same fingerprints that you do. There's nobody that has exactly the same facial features that you do. There's nobody that has exactly the same background that you do. You are a unique, divine human being, period. Okay, now the problem occurs, you ready for this? You don't believe it. So the question is, who are you? And who do you believe you are? Do I have the ability to overcome issues? So it's the issues and challenges in our life. Last week we were looking at, the challenges are there as lessons, and what happens from those lessons is up to us how we react to the lesson. It's not what the lesson does, it's how we react to the lesson, because the lesson becomes into our life to teach us something and teach us how to react in a positive spiritual way. Okay? So how are we reacting? Your very core of your being is what we call your higher true self. This is the Christ you, the Christ mind. If you want to put your name in it, like Jesus Christ, you might want to call yourself Kathleen Christ. I'm going to do this, Tommy Christ.
Sometimes.
But if we believe the ancient readings, the ancient writings, the ancient ideas that's translated in today's world, who are we? Who are you? And what right do you have to diminish yourself in the presence of divinity? Okay? And so, how do I sell myself short? I go into fear, and I do the things that are contrary to the flow of life through me. Very, very interesting. So, I already looked at this. God is, again, I'm going back to John 4:24. God is spirit, and spirit is ineffable. In other words, you can't see it, touch it. The only thing it is an energy and a vibration that is a code saying, here's everything you want. Here's love. Now, it's it. I've really been struggling with this. What is love? And how do I express love? Okay, how to express love to magic? How to express love to you? When a call comes in and somebody is going into surgery or somebody's sick or something happens, how do I pray for you? And it's almost a mystery if you stop and think about that, because we really don't talk about it. But we have a gift called imagination. We have a gift called vision. We have a gift called we have the power to make things up. So love is that vision of us. Remember, vision occurs at the spiritual level. Eyesight occurs at the physical level. So if I look at you and see you as you are in the body, I'm seeing you in the material world, but to see you in the spiritual world, I have to go into my imagination, imagine you perfect, complete, and whole. Does that make sense? In other words, I've heard people pray, please heal Aunt Mima's or Aunt whatever, cancer. Well, I'm acknowledging the cancer, do you get it? So it's projecting only love. So the energy of God, in my opinion, is love. Okay, and that love is the vision that we hold for each other and for ourselves. So the question then becomes, first of all, what kind of vision do we have for ourselves? And is it a Christ vision or is it a spiritual body vision? And we get so locked into believing that we're the body and we have to prove everything to everybody in our world and we have to protect ourselves, okay? We can't let somebody in and we can't let anybody say anything nasty about us and we're ready to fight on anything, because what are we protecting? It's ironic, it really is. And then we go on. So, we did that. I want to talk about allowing Spirit to flow through us. Jesus' message over and over again, thou shalt love the neighbor as thyself. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and love thy neighbor as thyself, which encompasses pretty much everything. Anybody agree everything's our neighbor? Even inanimate things? Everybody's our neighbor. So the commandment is, or the suggestion, if you're going to follow the teachings of Jesus, is that love the Lord thy God, which is loving yourself. Because who are you? You are God. And then loving everything that occurs in our life, no matter what. And the key to it is no matter what. Because the flow of life comes through us, the flow of energy. I don't know. I understand it comes in through the back, goes through our body, and comes back out here. Other people have told me it comes in from the left and comes out to the right. There's all kinds of ideas. And ultimately, I find out it doesn't matter as long as I'm allowing something to flow. Now, those of you that have a scientific mind understand something called superconductivity. Electricity flows through wires, and it's actually the electrons that flow through a wire. In other words, the energy in those lights up there comes from electricity generated out there through wires into and through the switch and up to the light. And the light is the effect of the electricity electrons moving in a wire. Everybody there? Now, in the electrical circuit, there's a thing called resistance. Okay? And the resistance is the resistance of the electricity to flow through the wire. In other words, it's going through a mass that slows it down. Remember that? So everything in the physical world has resistance and stops flow. In other words, if you take a hose, a big hose, and run a lot of water through it, then a lot of water comes through. But if you take a small hose, there's resistance and there's less water coming through. Now, in electricity, it's called ohms. And it's the amount of resistance that the wire creates on the electricity flowing through it. Now, here's an interesting thing, and I'm going into physics, because to me, I've got to understand this, and I want you to understand it, that we are resistant to God's love flowing through us by the energies we have created in our subconscious mind. Okay? Now, there is an interesting thing in electricity called superconductivity. Okay? Some of you know this. When a conductor reaches minus, I think it's 275 degrees Celsius, minus, cold, really cold, the resistance stops and electricity flows 100% through the wire. Now, it's a state of being that's not easy to get to, and they really have to use really, really high refrigeration. I understand they use a lot of liquid nitrogen. However, it can occur, and it does occur, and they've proven it in the physics environment. So for me, it's a metaphor of learning to let go of the self that we have learned in the physical world and becoming more and more of the spiritual self and allowing love to flow through us as a superconductor. So our job is becoming superconductive of spirit. And to me, it's a beautiful, beautiful example. And the question is, how do we do that? We see love everywhere. Because the energy of God is love. And my job is to transmit as much love through me from universal consciousness through into the world. And then I have, if there's anything in me that stops it, it's something that isn't love. So if I figure out what isn't love within my consciousness, so what isn't love? Well, criticism, condemning, complaining, What else?
Fear.
Fear in any form. Okay? Competition. All of these things are, I call them, we're going to start calling them the human omission. Okay? There's a resistance to God's flow through us. Now, as God flows through us, the kingdom of heaven is within. What is in heaven? What is in heaven? The Garden of Eden. Yeah. So we keep wondering, how do we get back into life working for us? How do we get into life healing for us? How do we get into abundance? How do we get into health? We open the channels of God through us. A lot of the great healers, when you talk to them, they will say, I don't know what I do, I just see you in love. Okay? And some of you have been around those kind of people. So what's wrong with the world? The world is so worried about what everybody else is doing instead of me being loved. And it's easy, believe me, to fall back into it. It really is.
Can I just offer something?
Yeah.
It came up somewhere, just in our being together here. And we were living in a place called Craig, Saskatchewan. My dad was the manager of the dealership. And I wanted a bike. So my dad went out and he bought me a bike that was about this high, because I was about 6 years old. And it had belts on it, to drive it and everything. Well, when I saw that thing, I can still remember my reaction to it. I felt afraid and fear. And
too much?
It was too different from everybody else's bike.
See, thank you, Bruce. You bring up an interesting thing. What's it like to be totally, absolutely peaceful? And I'm willing to bet nobody can give me an answer. Because see, we don't know what it's like to live in bliss. Peaceful and bliss means no problems, no worries, non-reactive to everything, no opinions, only love. When I look at that next door neighbor that creates a problem, I love them rather than try to figure out how to get back at them. Okay? The political conversation doesn't bother me anymore because I know that only good unfolds who we are. And I'm using an example. You make up your own, because we all have our own. See, we all have our own path, and we're all dealing with this, here I go again, crap. Okay, but it's not looking at that, it's looking at the Christ, who I know I am, and staying in that process of seeing only good. I've been reading this Choose Only Love. We're going to have to start a class, because I'm getting a lot out of this. But it just happened to be, I was reading this yesterday. Are you ready? Now this is another channel communication from Jesus, okay? And it says, this is after a whole chapter. I'm going to go back. Remember that when you were looking for what for was really looking for you. Do you see what he's saying is that we are all looking, what we're really looking for is who you already are. So we're looking for you. And since what you really wanted was love, because would you agree we want people to appreciate us, we want people to love us, we want people to give thanks for us, okay? That is your being, then your being which never left you, found you first. This is not a play in words, it is the reality of spiritual life. So we are, that's the folly, we are us looking for us. Okay, then it goes on and says, you are not a body. Now, anybody heard that before? But try to disassociate yourself from the body. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time doing it. I'm getting there, okay? Then it goes on and says, you know that. Inside we know that. We know intrinsically that we are holy. And then it goes on to say, created, you are human spirit, created by God with the ability to create worlds. So you are the center of the universe. Okay, then it goes on. From the inner world arises the outer world. I'll say that again. From the inner world arises the outer world. So, if you're having problems, look around, because the world you're creating is the world you're living in. So the outside world comes from the inner world. And then it goes on, what rises from the inner world arises from the outer world. From an inner world without love, a world arises without love. So things we're experiencing that we're not happy with are things that arrive without love. And if we had been living and thinking in love, where would we be? Okay, then it goes on and says, from an inner world without love, a world arises without love. From an inner world full of love, a world full of love emerges. Pretty simple. Very, very, to me, very, very amazing, simple explanation of the law of attraction. Just for kicks, did you ever sin? No, you just stopped filling yourself with love. Great, right? You know, in other words, you didn't do anything wrong. All we did was stop filling ourselves with love. We stopped looking at things with love and love only. And I could go on and on and on. It's an interesting thing we're dealing with. And I was thinking about this. And I was writing down what are things that are examples. Stop and think about it. Appreciation. Is appreciation love? Because appreciation is looking for the good in somebody else. And how often are we doing that? Okay? Now, it depends on how somebody receives it. Okay, but whose job is it to give it? Yours. Okay, and I've had kickbacks. I have a tendency to appreciate people. And sometimes people say, I don't appreciate it. See, that's not my issue, that's their issue. Okay? Because as a child of God, do you deserve appreciation? Yes. Okay? And what else? Thanks and gratitude. You wouldn't believe the gratitude we have here for you. Your time keeps things going. Your treasure keeps things going. And what is the other thing?
Talent.
Talent. Thank you, Tommy. I had to do that, okay? Because your energy being here is what keeps things together. Your energy at home being who you are keeps the universe in play. And we have a tendency to think, well, I'm only, no. You're a child of God, created in the image, and you're like a light on a hill, just Jesus said that. What else? Oh, like this. No reactions. Life is good. All is love. See, if I really believe that everything is God, anything I see, anything I experience is good for me. Now that's tough, okay? However, that's tough in the physical world, not the spiritual, okay? And then, oh, by the way, forgiveness. Okay? And do we have things to forgive? Yes. And folks, if we don't forgive them, and my experience is they keep coming up until I forgive them and let them go. The last month or two, Madeline even brought up somebody I should call that I was with, 10, 15 years ago, that I need to forgive. It'll keep coming back in your face. And forgiveness is the lessons that we have to learn about letting the past go. So, ultimately, who are you? Question. Okay? And it's a question I'm asking you, but I'm asking you to ask you. Yes?
So it was really interesting when you were talking about the superconductivity, the explanation you did. I really like that because it made me think about the inner, at a cold enough temperature, energy flows without any sort of resistance.
Yeah.
So that's the exact right condition that has been created for that to happen. So if we think about how do I create that exact right condition in my life?
Yes.
And it made me think about be here now.
Yeah.
If you're living in the moment and you're only dealing with what is in the moment, you're not in the past, you're not in the future, and you're just here. And if you can stay here in love, then you're creating that right condition.
Yeah. And see, that's allowing the flow to occur. To me, it was a beautiful metaphor. Because there is a point in electric current where all of a sudden it flows, and it happens, boom, when it hits the temperature. Now, I don't see that, I don't know that person, I've had to read about that. Okay, but that's what we're working toward, is that same conversation within the spiritual that we are. Okay, it's interesting, it really is. How do we get there? Prayer and meditation. What is prayer? Prayer is staying in the presence of God, being love, okay? Being concerned about it, rather than critical compassion. They're all part of the process, and it's something that nobody can do for each one of us. We sometimes, some point in time, we have to say, okay, why is this occurring? What is going on? What am I doing to create the resistance through God's love through me? Okay? And how come it ain't working?
So basically, we just have to really, really, really chill out.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay? And see, we keep looking for the answer. We keep looking for the answer. And what it could be, just chill out.
Do we know what it's like to chill out?
No,
Yeah, we do.
go ahead.
Okay. So have any of us ever been in a meditation so deep that you know it's time to come back out and join the world, but you don't
You don't
want
want
to?
to.
You don't want to, yeah.
There it is. That's it. And the gift of that is love. Every ounce of that is love. And we have finally hit it. That's where we know what chilling out is.
Training.
And at that point, you know, we make a conscious decision to come back.
Sure.
So, can we stay there? Absolutely. You know, you can stay there as long as you want. And time doesn't really, it's not the same there. It just is different. And so, you know, we're there, we're sitting there going, it's time to go. No, I don't want to go. No. It's like, no, we got to go. No, I'll stay right here. And so that moment or two more that you spend there is like 20 minutes. But it's the most peaceful, most loving, you know, other than being absolutely in love with someone else here, then that's the gift soul brings with it. And it is unmatched, completely unmatched in the experiences we have in life.
I'm laughing. And everybody has a different way of getting there. It's interesting. See, I'm realizing, you know, I've been talking to Valerie for a while, starting a meditation class. And part of my resistance has been, everybody has a different story. Okay? And we all try to fit into everybody else's ideas. And we got that's part of the issue is, how do I get there? Well, it's you. Within you, you have the code. Now, can we give some advice? Yes. However, it's still your job to do that and to figure it out. Okay? And see, the more you're in that state that he's talking about, the more the resistance changes, the closer to absolute zero spiritually we get. And see, it takes time. Now, time is an illusion anyway. Okay? And my understanding, and this comes from some of the spiritual background, is when we die, it's like being rejoined anyway. So it's learning to go back into that state. So we can do it ahead of time or wait until we die. And I'm not sure I know that.
Maybe Randy has the answer.
Who has the answer?
I saw a hand go up. Sydney.
Some of the times I'm dealing with are not illusions, like sneaking out of the house after midnight to hang out with men, and that pregnancy is 9 months.
Say that again.
Yes.
Some of my job is stopping a flow of love and being in resistance and blocking
So what
with love.
Okay, an idea of what comes up for me love has many meanings, okay, it does. And we have a tendency to talk about love in a physical way, in a form of, it's different than the love over here in the spiritual, okay? So there's a discernment there.
Well, I just keep giggling because you say things like time is an illusion, but like that 9 months, that's not an illusion. And waiting for the doctor's appointment to protect
No,
against
that's-
that
no,
is also
That's
not
physical reality,
an illusion.
okay?
Yeah.
That is. And I don't disagree. B,
Well, sometimes, you're at peace and you meditate for peace and harmony and love and all this. And then the challenges come. And we think it's something that we did, but it's not anything about our thoughts or anything. It's because we need to evolve. And the only way sometimes that we can evolve is if there's a challenge. Because this is a school. And we came here to learn. So if there's no challenges, if there's no difficulties, we don't evolve. We stagnate.
see, there's the lessons that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Lessons come. The word challenge, when we're in the path, we get direction. So if a challenge comes, it's not my job to deal with the challenge, it's Spirit's job.
But we have to ask divinity for the wisdom.
We have to deal with
And
it in the Spirit. See, it's over here in the physical, we're used to, if this occurs, I have to do this.
Right.
And that's called learning, that's called wisdom. Okay, but if in a spiritual mode, when this happens, I go into Spirit, and then Spirit gives me the wisdom to deal with this.
Right.
Or even corrects it without me doing it.
Correct. But you have to be open and receptive when the challenge is there to stay in that list and know that it's for good.
Yeah. And the key to that is everything is for good,
Yeah.
which is difficult. Okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So what you're saying is, to me, the word flow is love. Love is flow, flow is love.
Flow is love, love is God. And do we allow God to flow through us? And that changes the thinking we have about the travails in the world. See, if I'm in the world's thinking, all these issues are important. And they are the things that come at me to solve. And I have pain, I have sickness, I have, okay, and over here, there are lessons that I handle through love. So it's understanding the key to it is, who are you? And that's what I'm asking, who are you? Are you really a child of God? Clearly at one with Spirit, okay?
So one of the key tenets of Eye of the Storm is that everyone is looking for love.
Yep.
Everyone, we are love, that's what we are. And some people in their lives, love was withheld. And so when you understand that if someone is hurting you or someone is being destructive towards you, they're just looking for love.
Yes.
They're acting out of hurt because they've not gotten what they need. And so when you're dealing with someone who is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, well, they're not supposed to be doing because they're asking for some sort of love. And so how do the flow is how we show up.
Yeah. And what you're addressing a psychological issue. As a human being, as a physical body, we learned a pattern on how to exist in the world. And how do I get love? Some people demand love through violence. Okay, some people demand love through sneaking around. Some people demand love through withholding emotion. In other words, I love you and you love me. There's all these things we learn as human beings. Now, the key to it is, how do we break those patterns down? And somebody is doing that to me. They have learned a habit on how they got love as a child, and they're repeating that habit within themselves now, no matter what level they're at. This is one reason why relationships come apart. Because, we get together so you can help me. rather than we get together so I can love you. Okay? So it's really, we're dealing with heavy stuff. And understand the answer is the kingdom of heaven is within. Period. Okay? So everybody take a deep breath. And I don't know what else to share with you, because if we're really on a spiritual path, this is what we are. Okay? And I sometimes want to go back to the rah-rah, standing on tables, screaming and hollering about kingdom of heaven is within. It's up to each one of us to learn how to get there. Okay? And the only thing each of us can do is pray for each other. And the way we pray for each other is see each other perfect, complete, and whole. Just the way they are, without any problems. Okay? So I think I've said enough. I probably have more that I would like to say, but I'm not going to. Thank you. Blessings.